Water and air are just as important as earth, and nature can create amazing things with them. Water is essential for life. Without it, nothing can survive. No plant can grow without water. Water holds the key to growth, especially for animals, whose seeds are mostly made of water. Even the seeds of trees and plants need to soak in water to grow properly, whether it's from the ground, dew, rain, or any added water. In the Bible, in Genesis 1:21 and 24, it says that only earth and water can create living beings. In Genesis 1:20, it mentions that water produces creatures that swim and birds that fly. Additionally, Genesis 2:5 states that plants and herbs could not grow because it hadn't rained on the earth. Water is so powerful that spiritual rebirth cannot happen without it, as Jesus explained to Nicodemus in John 3:5. Water is important in religious rituals for cleansing and purification, and it is just as necessary as fire. It provides countless benefits and is essential for the growth and sustenance of all living things. Ancient thinkers like Thales of Miletus and Hesiod believed that water was the source of everything and the strongest of all elements because it controls the others. Egyptian priests thought that the sun and moon did not travel in chariots but instead floated in boats, suggesting they came from moisture. They believed that Homer learned from the Egyptians, which is why he claimed water was the origin of everything. They connected Oceanus with Osiris and Tethys with Isis, calling them nurses because they are seen as the mother of all things. Pliny said that water can cover the earth, put out fires, rise into the sky, and create clouds that challenge the heavens. Water takes over dry land, extinguishes flames, and when it falls, it is the source of everything that grows. It can rise high into the sky, carrying fish and stones, and when it falls back to earth, it brings forth life. For more on the properties and uses of water, you can refer to Pliny's Natural History. Many amazing things happen with water, as noted by writers like Pliny, Solinus, and others. Ovid also talks about these wonders in his work, Metamorphoses. He describes how the waters of Horned Hammon are cold at noon, but hot at sunrise and sunset. When wood is placed in the bubbling waters of Athamas, it catches fire. The Ciconian streams can turn someone's insides to stone if they drink from them. The waters of Crathis and Sybaris, which come from the mountains, can change hair to the color of amber or pure gold. Some fountains can not only change the body, but also the mind. For example, there are tales of Salmachus and the Ethiopian lake, where those who drink from it lose their senses or fall into a deep sleep. At Clitorius's fountain, people forget about wine and only desire water. In contrast, the waters of Lyncestis can make those who drink too much feel dizzy, as if they were drunk. There's also a lake in Arcadia called Phineus, which is known to be dangerous at night but safe during the day. People are warned not to drink from it at night. Josephus talks about a remarkable river between the cities of Arcia and Raphanea in Syria. This river flows strongly on the Sabbath, Saturday, and then suddenly stops, as if its springs have dried up. For the next 6 days, you can walk across it without getting wet, but on the 7th day the water comes rushing back, just like before. Because of this, the locals call it the Sabbath Day River, since it flows on the holy day for Jews. Titus Caesar also saw this river during his travels. It runs between Arcia, part of Agrippa's kingdom, and Raphanea. The river is unique because it has a strong current when it flows, but then it completely dries up for 6 days. On the 7th day, it flows again just like it did before, and this pattern has been consistent over time. That's why it is called the Sabbatic River, named after the sacred 7th day in Jewish tradition. In the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verses 2-4, there is a story about a pool where people could be healed. The first person to step into the water after it was stirred by an angel would be cured of any disease. There was also a spring in the town of Heraclea, near the river Citharon. Anyone who stepped into this spring while sick would come out completely healed. This village is about 6 miles from Olympia, and the spring is dedicated to nymphs named Caliphaea, Cynalysis, Pagaia, and others, known as the Ionides. People believed that washing in this spring could cure many ailments. Pausanias mentions another spring called Agria on Mount Lycaeus in Arcadia. When the area was facing drought, the priest of Jupiter would go there, make sacrifices, and pray. He would dip an oak branch into the spring, which would stir the water and create mist that turned into clouds, eventually bringing rain to the land. There is also a spring on Mount Lycaon that produces the same amount of water all year round. When there is a drought, the priest would pray and stir the water, causing mist to rise and form clouds that would bring rain to the area. Rufus, a physician from Ephesus, and other writers have shared strange stories about the wonders of water, which are not found in other texts. Now let's talk about air. Air is a vital force that gives life to everything. It connects and fills all things. Hebrew scholars do not consider air as one of the basic elements. Instead, they see it as a medium that holds everything together. According to the Sefer Yetzirah, water is silent, fire makes noise, and air acts like a balance, helping to mediate between the two. Von Rosenroth, in his book Kabbalah Unveiled, explains that a spark existed and waited until pure air surrounded it. Then this air helped create a solid shape known as the skull of Microprosopus. The spark was absorbed by this pure air. He suggests that this air is a hidden part of the ancient wisdom. Thomas Vaughan, who studied Agrippa closely, describes air as something special, not just an element. He calls it a mix of different extremes that connects two worlds. It is like a central place where all of nature's actions and intentions come together. In this air, you can find many forms of life, including people, animals, plants, and everything that crawls. Air takes in the influences of heavenly bodies and shares them with other elements and living things. It acts like a mirror, reflecting all kinds of things, both natural and man-made, as well as sounds and words. When this air enters the bodies of people and animals, it leaves an impression on them, affecting their dreams and thoughts, whether they are awake or asleep. Because of this, if someone walks by a place where something terrible has happened, like a murder, they may feel fear. This happens because the air in that place carries the feelings and energy from the tragedy, making the person anxious. Many philosophers believe that air is responsible for dreams and various mental impressions because it carries images and feelings from things around us until they reach our senses and minds. This means that it is possible for someone to communicate their thoughts to another person who is far away, even without any other spirit involved. Although it's hard to say exactly when this happens, it usually happens within 24 hours. The abbot Tritenius also knew how to do this in the past. Agrippa's knowledge of magic was both practical and theoretical, and it seems that Trithemius was at least a fellow student or possibly a teacher of his. When things, both spiritual and natural, give off certain appearances, they gather strength in the air and show themselves to us through light and movement. Plotinus explains that the air can create images in clouds, allowing us to see distant things like castles and mountains, which disappear when the clouds go away. Aristotle, in his work Meteors, describes how a rainbow forms in a cloud of air, acting like a mirror. Albertus mentions that nature allows images of objects to be easily reflected in moist air, similar to how things can be reflected in mirrors. Aristotle also tells the story of a man with poor eyesight who thought he saw his own image in the air, as if it were a mirror. In a similar way, special mirrors can create images in the air at a distance. When people see these images, they might think they are looking at spirits or souls, but they are just reflections of themselves without life. It's known that in a dark place, if a beam of sunlight shines through a small hole onto a white surface, you can see images of things happening outside. There's an even more amazing trick. If someone places painted images or written letters in front of the full moon's light on a clear night, those images can be reflected and multiplied in the air. Someone far away could see and read those images within the moon's light. This technique can be very useful for towns or cities under siege, a method that Pythagoras used in the past, and I know how to do it too. All these wonders come from the nature of air and can be explained through mathematics and optics. Just as images are reflected for our eyes, sounds can also echo back to us. There are even more secret techniques that allow people to hear and understand whispers from a long distance. Winds are simply air that has been moved around. There are 4 main winds coming from the 4 directions: Notus from the south, Boreas from the north, Zephyrus from the west, and Eurus from the east. Pontanus describes them in his poetry, saying, "Cold Boreas blows from the top of Olympus, and cloudy Notus flows from below. Zephyrus, the fruitful wind, comes from the west, and barren Eurus rises with the sun." Notice is the southern wind, known for being cloudy, moist, warm, and sometimes unhealthy. Ovid describes the winds like this. The south wind flies out with heavy wings, hiding his scary look in dark clouds. His white hair flows, and his beard is swollen with rain. Mists wrap around his head, and rain pours from his chest. Boreas, the north wind, is the opposite of Notice. He is fierce and roaring, pushing away clouds to clear the air and freezing the water. Ovid describes Boreas as saying, "I am strong and drive away thick clouds. I toss the blue waves and uproot sturdy oaks. I freeze soft snow and strike the ground with hail. When I battle with my brothers in the air, we shake the skies with our powerful clashes, and lightning flashes down from above. As I rush through the cracks in the earth, I make ghosts tremble and the ground shake." Zephyrus, the west wind, is gentle and blows from the west with a pleasant breeze. It is cool and moist, helping to end winter and bringing forth new branches and flowers. Eurus, the east wind, is the opposite of Zephyrus. Also called Apeliotes, he is wet, cloudy, and greedy. Ovid writes about these two winds. Eurus blows to Persis and Sabea, whose sweet gums scent the morning rise. Then, as the evening comes and the coast glows with the setting sun, Zephyrus blows flowers. In Scythia, the harsh Boreas brings his rain, under the bare constellation and the frozen wagon. The land opposite him is soaked by Auster, with fruitful rains and clouds that always weep.